Hi all. So welcome to another session of OpenShift clusters. So here in this particular videos that we are going to talk about like users creations, like how we can create user in your OpenShift clusters, right? Like again, we have like a different method to create users in the OpenShift environment, right? So basically, we are talking about that. Mechanisms and methods. So OpenShift support many more mechanisms. So let me just mention this point for you guys to get that like what kind of method they support that. I just mentioned that few point, right? Like the support that has the password mechanism that we can use that apart from that, right? And this support like something keystone, right? I hope you guys heard it in the OpenStack environment, right? And apart from that, the support the OIDC that we have like OpenID Connect. We have also options for the same, right? You can also connect the LDAP, and then we have like Google account. You can also create that. You can also connect that like GitHub and GitHub Enterprise, right? So overall, the point what we have, right, when you're talking about that identity providers, right, we known as like what IDP here, right? So once we are talking about that identity provider, so open support like many more provider that we can integrate and then we can connect into that your OpenShift clusters, right? So here in today videos and today session that what we are going to talk about that, right? So here we are going to talk about like how we are going to create user, right, with the help of htpasswd mechanisms, right? Like so again, with the help of this method we are going to create like fresh any users, okay? And then we are going to authenticate my that user into my OpenShift cluster OAuth component, right? And then we are going to verify and try like whether we are able to log in with that newly created users or not, right? So these are some scenarios that we're going to talk about that, right? And it's like a very important point, right? To manage and maintain the users. So here we have like a point, right? Here that we're going to talk about the authentications process, right? And the authorizations part where we are maybe covering in the after the sessions, right? So the very first that we're going to talk about like how we are going to create users, right, with the help of hasty password mechanisms, right? So I hope everyone are aware of that like what hasty password mechanisms we just mentioned that that are going to validate your users and then the password hold by your hasty password file, right? And then what we are going to do that we are going to simple authenticate and add that file into the secret, right? And then the secret that we are going to add inside my OAuth configurations, and then clusters are going to read the point. So what the process we have that, let me just show you diagram, like we have some diagram. So see, if you notice now this point, right? So what I'm trying to mention that, right? So if you just notice now this point, so we have like this point, see? So the very first, we must log in with any users, right? That user, like see, again, try to create a user, so you must log in into your OpenShift cluster with the help of administrator, we can say that, or the user who have abilities, or we can say the permissions to create a users, correct? So what we can do that we need to simple log with my admin users into the clusters, right? And that admin are going to create a kind of file for me, we can say the hasty password file, okay? And that file I'm going to integrate, or we can say add into my OpenShift authentication, sorry, into my secret, right? And again, while creating the secret must be under the OpenShift config namespace, correct? So I mean I'll walk through that like why this is mandatory things, right, to creating those things, right? So the very first, let me switch to my lab, right? Because the theory part, again we have a lot of things that we're going to talk about that, but I want to demonstrate those things like, okay, so how you as an OpenShift administrator, right, like going to create a users with the help of hasty password into your OpenShift environment, right? See, so the very first, let me switch to my lab. Okay, so the very first, what I'm going to try to mention that if you guys want to create a users into your system, so you must install that hasty password plugins. So we can say like we are trying to run this command like hasty passwd, right? So to run that command, the package must be available or the package must be installed. So how we can do that? So here we need to run like a yum install. In my case, the repository is already configured. So here along with my guest user, so I need to run the sudo command. So in my case, see the system saying that in my system the package by default installed, right? So again, if the package by default installed, then we are able to run which command, the htpasswd, correct? Now, so what the things we have that while creating the users and all those things, so we have straightforward command, right, like creating the hasty password, right? To see, So what the syntax we have, that we have a simple command like htpasswd. Let me just clear this page again. Okay, so htpasswd hyphen c stand for I'm creating a new file, right? So c stand for the create, then hyphen b and hyphen b, right? That we can say for the bcrypt, and for do not prompt for the password in the next line. I'm just passing password in the same line, correct? So I'm just creating a file with bcrypt with do not prompt for the password in the same time. We just mention that value. Otherwise, if you're not sure about the options, what you can do that you guys can always check the help. Again, I guess you have administrator privileges to see. So they mention they're creating a new file, and then B stand for the what? Decrypting the encryption mechanisms, and B means what we can say that use the password from the command line rather than prompting for the next line. Correct? Now, so again, what command we have that we simply mention like htpasswd hyphen c hyphen b hyphen b, and I'm creating a file with the name of something, anything I can create there. Let's suppose that passwd, or we can say pass, correct? And then I'm creating a user. Let's suppose that Sarah with what password? Red Hat, correct? So again, this is my new file that I'm going to create that, and what username I have, that Sarah, and this is Sarah password, correct? Hit enter. If you notice now in my current path, right, to see we got a file with what name? Pass, right? You can verify this file, you can get this file to see this file contain my username Sarah with their password in the encryption mode, correct? You want to create more users, right? So this time do not apply the C option. Why? Because the C options are going to override the file. Always remember that if the file is already existing in your case, do not pass the C options, correct? So we have this mechanism. Let's suppose I need to create another user. Just for example, let me just create like Ram with what password it had, okay? And I need to create another user. Let's suppose that something Harry, okay, with what password? Let's suppose that Red Hat, right? So I created three users. You can create many more users just for the example. And if you notice now with this password file, you see I hold the three users. What we have that like Sarah, Ram, and Harry, correct? Now what I need that, or what my intentions, right? Like we are going to do that. Like I need to log in with these three users. You can verify anyone, right? Into my OpenShift clusters, and with which mechanism? With the help of htpasswd mechanisms, correct? So see, so what point we mentioned that, right? We cannot directly pass these file into your into your OpenShift authentications configurations, right? So in that case, the process what we have that, right? After create the htpasswd, I need to create a secret, right? So secret name could be anything, it's not an issue, right? But there's a point you guys need to remember, right? We can say that it's mandatory field. The secret must be under the OpenShift -config, right? So this is a fixed path actually, right? So again, there's a questions for you guys. You can mention in the comment sections, right? Like, is it mandatory to mention that point in the OpenShift configurations, the OpenShift config namespace, right? Yes. Then where this parameter are mentioned that, or if can we change that? There's another options if you want. Then how we can change that? If it's possible, because most of the time they mention that you need to create a secret under the, and in any mechanism you need to create secret under the OpenShift config. So there is questions for you guys like is it mandatory to create create a secret under the OpenShift configurations for the authentications, right? And why? I mean, there's a questions for you guys, right? So here, let's suppose that what we are going to create that, I'm going to create my htpasswd, right? The users, we can say that under the secret, sorry, under the namespace, that namespace must be OpenShift config. So, right, so this is a pre-configured namespace by default created inside our OpenShift, right? So I need to create my users with any identity provided under this OpenShift configurations, right? There is another parameter like we can't change, we cannot change. So we have a separate topic that we'll walk through that, right? But again, if I just mention for you that no, it's not required. You can't. I mean, it's not required to change that. Do not change that OpenShift config namespace, right? If you change that, you are not able to log in that, or your authentication are going to fail that, right? Because there's a lot of things that are surrounding that point, like okay, what and how or why we are not why we cannot change that parameter, correct? Now, so the point what I'm trying to mention that, let's suppose here we have a file, okay, and now what I'm going to do that right, I need to create my secret, right? So again, secret must be under the OpenShift -config namespace, correct? So for that, what we can fire a command, we have a simple command like OC create secret, right? The secret type must be generic because we are creating with the help of file mechanisms, right? And then secret name must be anything. You can create a secret name like new hyphen sec, right? And from where? So I have a file. We just mentioned that from file, okay? And then simple mention the file name. Like I have a file name with what? Pass, right? If you wanted to secure with like another name, something like that, you can mention the like different name. Like okay, so I need to mention like htpasswd with pass. You can also mention that, right? If you are going to show your or describe your secret, you can see only this name. It's not going to see the real file name that hold your secret. So this is up to you, like what you can do that, right? And again, that must be under which namespace? OpenShift config namespace. So that thing you guys need to remember that, like the point what I'm trying to mention, that must be under that which namespace? OpenShift config namespace. The user tab for auto completions and hit enter. See, right? So in order to verify, yes, you can verify like OC get secret, okay, and then you want to verify the secret name, like okay, I need to check the secret name that is available inside or not. So see, once I'm going to verify like with help of OpenShift config namespace, see, I can check that like section second ago I created a secret with what name you set. Wanted to verify those things, what kind of data, you cannot check directly, right? But I can see my file name, like this file name htpasswd. How? So simple, you can describe your secret, okay, the secret name something new sec, and that is available inside which namespace? OpenShift config. See, so they mentioned that, right? So the things and all, right? And see, so these are not going to show your real file name here, because we just simply change that. If you, that's up to you, again, it's not mandatory and all, right? You see, so they mentioned that I hold a file with ht password, and what the size of this file could be 198 bytes. Yes, you can decode that, it's like another information, but here we're not going to talk about that point, right? What here we have that we simply follow this process. Like similarly, we have my users, and then I have my, what we can say, that I have my users file. Then your OAuth component directly does not support that file, right? So here we are going to create a secret, right, with any name, and that secret must be OpenShift config, right? So overall we can say that I have a secret with what name? New save, and that hold my user information. We can say that okay, so I have my user with what name, right? So that are going to hold by the new hyphen save. Correct? After creating all these things and all those parameters, what we can do, that we can simple provide these informations to my OpenShift. I'm talking about this point, right? So now jumping on the next point, right? Now I need to update my OpenShift authentications program. Like okay, so you have a program like I get a new secret with new users and all those things. I need to add my things, right? So here we mentioned that I have like a multiple provider like htpasswd, Keystone, OIDCL. I mean multiple we have, right? So again, in OpenShift clusters, right, you can add many more, we can say more than one, right, or multiple, you can say obviously more than one, right, more than one identity provider at the same time. Like similarly, suppose in my case I already configured LDAP, right? So what we can do that I can also configure the htpasswd, OIDC, and many more at the same time, right? So it's not an issue like you cannot configure that, right? You can configure multiple identity provider at the same time in a single OpenShift clusters. Correct? So again, if you notice now, like my authentication, so let me just quickly walk through that. Like so what we have that like OC gate auth and clusters. So see, want to check that like what authentication name. So see, my authentication name is something like clusters, right? What we can do that, let me show with you like cluster, okay, and show me detail in the YAML format. Output in which format? The YAML, okay. And see, once we hit enter, we have these details, and see what type we have that. So see, the type is like auth, okay. And in my system, we already configure a LDAP identity, right? So I'm not going to delete that. I'm going to keep as it is, right? And I'm going to add one another htpasswd identity to provide me the authentications and configurations. Correct? So for that, what I'm going to do that, I'm going to simply store the same. Either you can write all the YAML file manually, or what I'm going to do that, I'm going to simply store this output with any file name. Let's suppose that auth.yaml, right? So this auth.yaml, whatever the output I'm getting from this file, these are going to store inside auth.yaml file. And see, here I get a file with what name? Auth.yaml, okay. And now what I'm going to do that, I'm going to simple edit this file, okay, and edit means I'm simple adding my own values that we have information like okay, so I have my htpasswd parameter, right, and I need to add this parameter to update my newly created users. Correct? Now, so see what I'm going to do that, open my author.yaml file and see we have these configurations. See, right? So auth, and then the systems already hold my one more identity, right? So what we have that like LDAP. So what I'm going to do that, right? I'm going to add, right, my another identity. So just scroll down at the bottom of the line or bottom of the page. We can say that I'm going to add my another identity, and what the identity name this time I'm going to create that the htpasswd. So this is my another identity that we okay. So we have like htpasswd, correct? And once we added that, right, now add that another parameter. Okay, so what is that secret name, right, that hold user information, right? So again, to call your secret, I have a parameter with what name? File data, right? So D must be in uppercase and mentions your name of your secret. So here I'm going to mention my secret name, that is like what? New hyphen sec, right? So this is what we can say, this is my secret name, correct? Always remember that. If you notice now, right, here we are not pass any kind of namespace. So always remember that. We mentioned a point for you guys, right? So always remember that your OAuth authentication, we can say OpenShift authentications, always read which namespace, OpenShift hyphen config namespace, correct? So if we change, that's why your OAuth are going to fail to read the data, and the user are going to fail to log in that, correct? So these are some kind of information. So here we simple mention my secret, and systems already know that, right? If I want to specify, the secret must be under the OpenShift hyphen config namespace, correct? So that we mention the values, right? And now come to the next point. We just mentioned that the mapping method. So here we just mentioned the mapping method like what? The mapping method, right? This is the again first type. We have that, like I just mentioned the claim. Okay. So see here we mention also mention the mapping method and all. Okay. And then finally mention your name of your identity. We just mentioned that my new identity provider. That name could be anything. You can mention that. Okay. So that could be anything. And now finally mention the type. So what type we have that? We just mentioned that HTTP. This should be in the uppercase. These three starting character like HTTP, right, should be in uppercase. That's all. Right. So again, if you notice now, again in the same case, you can add like OIDC, GitHub Enterprise, many more authentication method we can add that, right? So if you notice now, see what we have, like we have file data, we have my secret, we have like my mapping method, and we have my name and then type. So right. So these 6 to 7 values we need to add that, right? That's all. Save and exit. Perfect. And now to apply the changes, what I'm going to do that, I'm going to simply replace and then hyphen F and then the file name. You can also apply that. See, so once we apply the changes, right, you cannot log in immediate. We need to wait another like 1.5 minutes. Maximum this time we can say maximum 2 minutes. Why? Because again, once we apply the changes, right, so once the authentication read your changes, right, this will apply to recreate the pod. Which pod? The authentication pod, because everything are going to store inside the authentications, right? And if we find the new changes, right, then the systems are going to hold the information like, okay, so we have these changes, right? So to verify those things, right, again there's another point, right? So your authentication pod always under the which namespace? So there is another namespace, right, that known as like what? OpenShift authentications, correct? So there is another pod that what we have that OpenShift authentications, right? So if you notice now, we did not apply it. Let me show with you that point. See, right? If I'm going to run this command like OC get pod and show me the pod under the which namespace OpenShift authentication. See, so this is my old pod running 56 minutes ago, right? And once we apply the changes, right, this pod must be recreated, and once the old pod are in a terminating state, and the system will create a new pod, and then you are trying to log in there, the user must be logging. Which user? That we created here, like Sarah, Ram and Harry, something like that, correct? Now, so again what I'm going to do that, I'm going to simply apply like OC, apply or replace is up to you, and hyphen F and my file name, and see, hit enter. See, the system replaced the clusters, and now quickly open my file OpenShift hyphen authentications, right? Let me just continuously watch this program, right? So for that, let me watch like hyphen every 1 second, right? So like maybe taking another like 1.5 minutes. It's not more than time, right? And in that case, the systems are going to recreate a pod, and once the newly pod are in the running state, the system remove the old pod, and then you are able to log in that, right? Let me show with you. If you're trying to log in with this now, right? See, I'm trying to log in with my Sarah user with what password? Red Hat. See, I'm not able to log in that, right? Why? Because the change is not applied yet, right? So yeah, wait a moment, right? And then this will create a new pod for me, and once this pod are going to recreate, then we can apply the changes accordingly. So these, I mean, you need to remember these two parameters specifically. We can say that, right? The authentications pod, we can say when we are trying to create a secret for my user, right? That must be under the which namespace, OpenShift config namespace, and once you apply the changes, the systems are going to create a pod under which namespace, OpenShift-authentication namespace. So these two things you guys need to remember that for every identity provider, right? So yeah, and one more thing, like let's suppose that if there's another point I just want to mention that, right? If the pod is not creating like more than 2-3 minutes and all, right? So there is a maybe typo missing in your YAML file, authentication YAML file, right? Or there could be issues inside your secret. Maybe you did not provide the secret name correctly. So that could be some kind of issue that might be occurred, right? So yeah, so that point you guys need to take care of that, like what kind of things we have that, sorry, what kind of things that we need to take care of that, and then how we can manage those things accordingly. Okay, so let me verify. I think it's taking some times, right? Till now, let me check that the details. You can also verify that changes what clusters -o, right? That must be applied here as well. YAML and see, we get the new things, right? There must be, remember that the secret name must be the same, right? That we mentioned that, right? So here we mention my secret name like something, what we get. See, if you notice now, see what we get that, guys. So my old pod are going to terminate state, right? And the new pod try to create, and see 30 seconds ago we create a new pod, right? So this will take time, right? You guys need to, yes, wait for the same thing, right? So once we get the newly pod changes, right? And now try to log in with the user, which user that you created like something Sarah with what password, something Red Hat. So the user must be logging like that. Correct? So you can log in with Sarah, you can log in with Harry, you can log in with Ram. Any user you can log in there because we mentioned that all the three, right? And see once we log in that, yes, this user we log in that, it's not like your super user or not like a cluster admin, right? So once we're trying to get the information like OC get node, we're not able to run that. Why? Because they don't have a permissions, right? So here in this section, we simply talk about like how to create users, right? With the help of htpasswd. Similarly, want to log in with another user. Let's suppose that OC login, let's suppose want to log in with Harry user, just for the example. And see, let me clear this page. So see, this must be also logging that. Okay, so here I missed the -u flag. Okay, and hit enter. See, I can log that. Correct. So what I'm trying to mention that this user is like a simple, we can say like a guest, we can say that guest user, right? They don't have like admin privileges. They cannot fire like super admin command, right? They have like a permission, like they can create their own project, right? Like what they can do, they can create like something, they can create own project, something like example, right? Okay, so example is already there. Let me create something demo. Okay, sorry, demo is also there. Okay, let me create something what? Okay, so let me create this name of like something Harry. Okay, and see, so if you notice now I'm inside where, so you can verify that we are inside that which name is space, we are inside this namespace, right? We can say the Harry namespace, and inside that I don't have anything, right? If this user want, then he or she what they can do that they can simply create an applications, right? Something name, we can mention that the demo, and with which image you can also pass the image name, something like engines or anything like this. See, I mean, they are allowed to create their application in their own project, right? So depend on that point, depend on their way, we can create those configurations and services, right? So I believe that we have limitation of image issues. I need to okay, so let me do one thing. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me quickly create another. Let me download that images for me, right? From the public portal to demonstrate these things actually, right? Like they are allowed to or not. So let me download that images from the q.io, right? I mean, in my case, we have like, okay, so from the q.io, let me download any like Nginx or something like that, you can use that, it's not any issues. I want to simple demonstrate to you guys, right? Let me try to download that Nginx. Okay, okay, I made a typo missing here, Nginx. Okay, so yeah, this one, let me copy this URL, okay, and into my terminal, right? Let me change that things. Okay, so I don't have any images, right? And images. Okay, so here I'm not pulling that image with the apartment, right? So far, right? So far, what I need to do that. Okay, just a moment, guys. Right? No, just a moment. I think it's stuck. Let me revamp that. Let me reopen my terminal. Okay. Okay, so here I log in with which user? I believe we log in with something. Okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah, what I'm trying to mention that here along with this Harry users, right? So what command we have that, right? So I can simple fire a command like oc new app, okay, and hyphen name. So what I'm trying to mention that like this user allowed to create some project, right? And then you can mention the image name, okay, and then what you can mention that you can simple paste your image name, right? And here I'm pulling the image from the queue portal, so I don't require these things and hit enter. That's all, right? You can notice now, see. I'm able to download these images from this particular sections and scenarios. So see, here I am able to download that images and then I'm able to create an application. In my namespace, I cannot use someone else's namespace, right? So, I mean, this is a demonstration like how we can create a users, right? And how we can create a project with that user, just for the example, okay? And how we can, yeah, so see, this is running fine for me. You can check that like what kind of component we have that. So see, you can verify that like okay, so I have my pod, services, deployment, replica set, and we have these images, right? Want to log out? Yes, you can simply log out, and then you can log in back with your admin users or whatever you have that. Correct, right? So yeah, so this is the process. This is the way like you can log in with that, and you can log in with your custom users that we created with the help of htpasswd, and then we can demonstrate like okay, so we have this information. You can also follow the same thing. Correct. So for any questions, any doubt, yeah, just keep me posted. You can simply mention the comment sections like if you have any questions, right? We mention a question for you guys, like why is it? I mean, why is like mandatory to mention that secret under the OpenShift config namespace? So that's like worry for you guys. We'll walk through that this question in the next video sessions. Right? Thank you. Thank you.